Welcome to Seminar Sunday, District 21's weekly webinar series. And welcome especially to the first episode of the 2019 calendar year here on January 6, 2019. No matter where you join us around the world, it's great to have you on the line to talk a little bit about Toastmasters Month today. And Toastmasters Month is an exciting thing that is coming up very shortly. So if anybody has any questions, thoughts throughout the session, then please feel free to take advantage of the chat on the left-hand side of your screen if you're joining us on the computer. And at the top, you'll also see an option to do presenter questions. Today is, of course, part of a series of weekly webinars. And I've just put the schedule up on the screen through the end of February. Great sessions coming up in the next couple of weeks as well that you won't want to miss, including things like speech contest related topics, what an area director is, and of course we will also do some more public relations related conversations on January 20th. I'm very lucky today to be able to be joined by the District 21 Public Relations Manager, Virginia Keast, for this webinar. Welcome, Virginia.
Hi there, everyone. Hi, Michael.
Hi. And this is what we're going to be covering off through this evening. We're going to talk about what is Toastmasters Month, why it's important. The when will also be part of that, of course. Public relations and how that comes into play at the club and district levels with Toastmasters Month, how we can spice up our meetings for increased attendance and variety, and finally, we'll talk about membership drives to support the growth throughout the month and beyond. So what we're going to start off with is we're going to talk about public relations, we're going to talk about Toastmasters Month, and then we'll get into public relations. And once again, though, I do encourage everyone that's on the computer, take advantage of the chat, take advantage of submitting questions. It's totally okay to submit it, even if you feel like, hey, it's the wrong time. You're not interrupting me as I speak. What I'll do is just transition over to your question after whatever thought I have is finished, and we'll make that kind of nice, seamless transition through doing that. And it's a lot of fun to see what questions come up along the way as well. So Toastmasters Month is February, the month of February. And the idea of Toastmasters Month is to celebrate and promote Toastmasters and the benefits that we've gained through Toastmasters. It's primarily looked at as a public relations effort, but I like to think of it a lot more than that. It's also about finding ways to create a dynamic meeting and bring in those guests and new members and just celebrate overall. Not that the other 11 months of the year we can't, absolutely we can. But that 1 month is where we put that concerted effort in specifically to our public relations effort and see what we can accomplish. It's incredible. I put up a couple of pictures on the screen, one of which is one of the clubs in District 21, the Tawasin Ambassadors Toastmasters. And if you ever get a chance, if you're on social media, Facebook in particular, they have such a great presence there. And I wanted to highlight them as somebody that you could take a look at and perhaps steal some of those ideas for your Toastmasters Facebook page if you have one. Because like I said, they have a real powerful presence there, and it stirs up energy and excitement. And one of the things that they're very successful at doing as a result is getting into some of their local newspapers. We're not talking necessarily about large-scale papers, although that's totally possible as well, but even some of those local papers that people will read in that direct community. Any advertisement that you get for free via public relations is well worth it. And having a quote in a newspaper about something that your club has done or is about to do is certainly a advertisement in some way, shape, or form, because that's going to tell people about your club. So there's that. That's what Toastmasters Month is. You'll also notice the other screen, or the other picture rather, is the proclamation. Each Toastmasters Month, we usually get a proclamation from the province of British Columbia declaring February as Toastmasters Month. And that's a picture there of the SOMAS Toastmasters Club last year with the proclamation. And the SOMAS Club is actually in Port Alberni, British Columbia. So we have all of those things surrounding Toastmasters Month, and it's important because it allows us to reflect on what we've gained and share that with the world. And sometimes it helps, especially after kind of a slowdown at the end of December, and you're starting to pick up in January again with guests coming in and momentum. You can kind of raise that up to the next level in February and keep that momentum going, because it's easy for something to kind of fizzle out. So I love the way it's in February. Some districts do it in different months. There's, I think District 86, for example, in Ontario does it in October. But to me, February is absolutely the best time to be doing a Toastmasters Month, because that's really, like I said, where you can take advantage of that energy from January and keep it projecting forward in a positive way. Any questions at all? Okay. I did put this quote from Warren Buffett in an article I posted on the District 21 website. Someone sitting in the shade today because someone planted a tree a long time ago. And that's why we're doing this webinar as early in 2019 as possible. The first webinar, when we scheduled out the year's worth of webinars, this was one of the first ones that went on that agenda, because you can't wake up on the morning of February 1st, get out of bed and say, you know what, we're going to do something for this month that's going to be great. Because planning is so critical. You cannot reap benefits without solid planning in advance before you run your event or your membership drive or whatever it happens to be that you've decided works best for your club and the potential guests that you may get throughout the month. So just something to think about and reflect on, not necessarily even for Toastmasters Month, but beyond. It's always nice to look at, how can my club be, for example, distinguished by the end of June? And you don't think about that June 1st. Hopefully you're thinking about that the prior year, July, and drafting a club success plan that you use to carry you forward to the next June. And Toastmasters Month is exactly the same concept. The earlier you plan, the better. So thank you all for joining again tonight, because this is the first step in planning, is thinking about it and brainstorming how you can take advantage of this great month of activities. So kudos to all of you for that. Now, before we get into PR, I do want to do a quick poll. I am curious, how many of you have started planning for Toastmasters Month? So it's on the screen now, and I'm very curious to see. There's the two yeses, one of them a little bit less keen than the other, perhaps. And I'd be very concerned if anybody put Toastmasters Month, ? We just covered that. Okay, so I'm going to share the results. So 50%, oh, somebody just voted, skewing it a little. 43% are solid yeses, 43% also not yet, and there's 14% that started, but perhaps hasn't got far along, or has just started, perhaps mentally, but not in terms of actually making something roll along. So thank you for sharing. That's good to know that we've got about half our folks on the call that have started and the other half who have not. All right, so let's talk now about public relations. And to carry us through the public relations section of this webinar, I'd like to turn it over now to Virginia. Virginia?
Hey, thanks, Michael. And hello, everyone. I think I've just gone too far forward here. There we go. Yes, what a great way to launch the year, the new year, by reaching out to your media, your local media. We did an amazing thing last year. We started this I Love PR campaign, and so many of the clubs responded in really creative ways. And it's such a great way to get your year started. We spent the first half of the year sort of focusing on interclub connections and getting to know our clubs. And now we want to look out and look towards our communities to help us raise awareness and also build our club membership. Now, PR specifically doesn't build the membership, but what it does is help you make those connections and raise awareness and bring those really important guests to your meetings. After that, it's another thing altogether. But today we're going to focus on the public relations side and how you're going to think about bringing people to your meetings. So we've got this great PR campaign that we're going to start this month, and it'll run through February. Who's it for? Well, it's sort of directed at the VP PRs, but really this can be a whole club effort because it's so much fun, and you really need more than just one person to spearhead something like this. It really is your whole club, and the people who can reach out face to face, or maybe know people in your community who work for the media, or just can lead you to the right people, the right influencers who are going to help you tell your story. So you've got to think, what's in it for the clubs to do all this extra work? Because we certainly are very busy. We all have things to do. But as a joint effort, this is a great way to bring your club together and to start talking about Toastmasters and take that message, what we often call our elevator speech, out to the public, right? Out to the people outside of your clubs. And it's a very different experience. So I hope all the clubs are going to get involved to some degree in this campaign. And at the end of February, if you've been able to share anything that you've done, any of your activities, any of your accomplishments, any of your successful media coverage, and you can share it with us either on the web or through Facebook, you'll be entered in a draw. And we're going to have some Toastmaster certificates going out to clubs who've participated in this campaign. Having said that, we've got on the slide, if you see that, with this campaign, there is a number of tools. And so I'm going to work through some of these tools. Yes, thank you, Carolyn. It's all coming. I'm going to explain. I'm just going to move forward now, and we'll break this all down into some of these tools that can help you in this public relations campaign. All right. First of all, we're going to talk about what interests the media, because in order to get to them, you have to have stories, right? You have to be able to interest them in something that is new and different. Well, the great thing about local media is they love your stories. And if you can get their interest, whether it's print or online, radio or TV, it goes a long way to sharing your particular story, your club story, in your local news. So February is Toastmasters Month, and it's a great opportunity to go out. It's a hook, in other words, because everybody's joining in this celebration. Many clubs around the world are also celebrating Toastmasters Month at this time. And February also begins our contest season. So that's another great reason to go out and tell people what we're doing and invite them to come to participate as audience in your contests. You can see there's a photo there of our Oak Bay winner last year, and he went on to get the district. And it was quite a lot of fun, or be certainly a finalist in the district. So we all had a great time in that process, and I hope you will too, because you can take that news to your local media, send them a photo, send them some brief notes, and they'll probably post it in the paper. Now, the other thing that's happening is that we always ask at a province-wide level for a proclamation from the government. And we asked 6 weeks ago, and we're crossing our fingers to get it any day now. And when it does come to us, we'll certainly be sharing it with all of you. And we can send you copies, digital and hard copy, and you can do whatever you like with those. They're a great tool to go to the media. So those should be coming soon. Next, in this PR campaign, of course, we're going to be talking today about sort of the overview and the general strategy, and again on the 20th. So we hope to have a more detailed dive into the ways we can generate media, the preparations, the backgrounders we need, possible news releases, pitches, just ways you can reach out and grab interest from your local media. And again, it's not just for VPRs, it's for everyone. And one of the ways I hope you're going to do this is help share what you're doing and even your questions or your thoughts on our District 21 Toastmasters Facebook sites. We have two. We have the group page for District 21 Toastmasters, and we also have a group page for the VPPRs, but anyone can join those. So I hope you'll do that and keep us posted with what you're up to. One of the ways, as Carolyn was asking, that we're also going to help you this year is we've decided to take out a certain number of ads in community newspapers. And our focus is initially to support clubs who are going to be struggling with their membership right now. And of course, we identified those this fall, and we went even deeper yesterday on Sunday at the district training session. So the division leaders are all looking at the clubs who are struggling and trying to look at ways of really helping them through the next couple of months in building their membership. And this way, we actually help you in marketing through your communication from marketing through your community newspapers. So it's adding a certain cost. We've allotted some money in the budget to help us do this. We worked at this last August and worked with Black Press and other community newspapers. So we've got some ads that we're working on. We certainly will appreciate your input into what these ads should look like. They will certainly reach out generally to one link, which is the District Toastmasters website, which will help people find a local club. So the purpose of these ads is to, as you can see, is to raise awareness that February is indeed Toastmasters Month. And along with the proclamation that you'll be pitching to your community papers, you're going to raise a lot of interest with these ads, we think, because community papers are always looking for community stories, community heroes, community successes. So we're really hoping that this ad will support that, all those initiatives, and we're hoping to aim for the first week in February. So as soon as that proclamation comes out, we'll be putting these ads out in the local papers and following them up with a couple of other things, but in coordination with your pitches. So it's always an interesting thing that I've found in my experience is that when you do have an ad in a local paper, they also tend to look at your pitches. When you say, oh yeah, we're advertising this month, it often happens a lot. Oh, that's great. That's good for you, Carolyn. Thanks so much. And so you can definitely help us by letting us know what clubs you really think need that extra help. Having said that, if there's a club, say in Surrey, that is really needing that extra boost, and we put an ad in the Surrey paper, it's really going to benefit all the clubs in Surrey. So we're hoping that there's this sort of effect that everybody will actually be helped throughout the district. And we feel we can reach a good deal of the community papers that will really impact all the clubs in the district. So if you have any questions, please let us know, either now or as you think of them. There's going to be a lot of communications coming down in the next 3 weeks through e-blasts. On the website, there's going to be a resource page, and there's also going to be our Facebook pages. So you can always ask questions there. And if you have any successes, again, we'd love you to share them. So also let's take a look at another tool, which are the postcard invitations. And we've done this as well a couple of years ago, and we find that it works very well for handing out to people who are not in our Toastmasters community, but external audiences that you'll find when you go out to other events. So the focus of these cards that we're going to be printing up is also to support clubs who need help, but at external events. So what we're really hoping you're going to do is at these events that you have during February and March, like your open houses, your mall visits, perhaps you'll have a speaker's corner, perhaps you'll do something in your local library, or even at some of your speech contests, you'll be able to give out these postcards to people you really think are going to be interested in coming back to visit you. So these are going to be sent to division and area directors, and hopefully they will share with the clubs as required. And again, these are going to be personal giveaways, that really reinforce that face-to-face meeting that you get to have with people, and as a leave behind to say, oh yes, please do come and visit us. So we do hope you're going to hand these out at external events. And as you can see, the postcards on the front side really just are an invitation to people to visit their local club. And on the back side, we're going to have postcards that are tailored to various areas. And you can see there's just a sample there. So for instance, clubs north of Vernon, there's Armstrong, Kalamalka, Monashee, and people can choose to come. And there's space as well, so you can write some personal information when you hand these out. And if, by the way, you have your club business card, you can hand those out as well. So what we're going to need from you, and you can really help here, is just to make sure that the information on the Toastmaster website is accurate, because we are going to put on these Toastmasters some form of contact, whether it's a website or a Facebook site. We prefer that rather than a phone number. If you have a website, it's always a less personal way of getting in touch. But we'll make sure we confirm that the information is accurate. Also, the time that you meet would be great. So that gives people an opportunity to kind of think, block out their week, and then contact you and come and visit you. Are there any questions yet? Always appreciated. There's our wrap for this first session, just to give you a sense of what this campaign wants to do and the tools it wants to use to help you get the word out, to raise awareness of Toastmasters, but also to put your club front and center in your community press. So generate that news that yes, you exist. Yes, you have great stories to tell. Perhaps you have some successful Toastmasters in your community that can provide testimonials or be even interviewed. And then again, we're hoping you're going to share on the District 21 Toastmasters Facebook site. So there's the group page, but also the VPPR page, and on the website. So over to you, Michael. Maybe you can handle some questions with me.
That would be great. If anyone has any questions. Got a little echo happening there. Okay, that's better. Then please, post them to the chat. We can definitely address them. Anything to do with public relations, whether that be the effort that this particular district, District 21, is putting on, whether it's about things that your club can do. Carolyn, we hopefully have provided you some information via what Virginia had to share, but also we've added a link in there for you to the resource library on the Toastmasters.org website. I can never say too many good things about that section of the Toastmasters.org website. If you go into resources in the resource library, you can find a whole plethora of great things that you can use for your club or your district role if you have that as well.
And Michael, may I add as well, we'll be using eBlast to reach out to each division and we'll be letting them know how we can get those postcards and brochures to them. But it would be really great if the division directors could let us know who is really in need, and maybe give us a sample of or an idea as those activities come in and clubs start thinking about activities they can generate during February and March. Give us an idea of when those are, and we'll make sure you get your postcards on time.
Great. Any other questions that anybody has? Before we move on to the next topic. Okay. Well, what we'll do is we'll move on to the next topic, and if anyone has any questions that they think of later on, it's still totally fine to ask that question during the course of this call or afterwards as well. You can contact myself. I can forward you on to Virginia. No problem whatsoever. We're here to answer questions and support everyone in reaching whatever you and your club's goals are. If in this time, at this time, boy, grammar police need to come and get me. At this time, we'll move on to variety and what we can do to spice up meetings. There is so many great ideas out there around the world that a Google search or two sometimes surprise us with. These different ideas or concepts or whatever it happens to be to make a meeting different. And for those of you familiar with Moments of Truth, you'll know that variety is an important aspect of the Toastmasters experience. Variety, fellowship, all of those things. And variety for some clubs can be a challenge. You kind of get into your routine of this is how your meeting format looks. And it's almost like for those of you that commute to work, you drive to work or whatever, you'll probably take the same path to work each day. And that doesn't matter if there's 10 different ways you could take. You will default to that way. And eventually, as time goes on, you'll get to work and you'll be working and you'll forget, how did I get to work again today? You won't remember the commute to work. And it's the same in a way with the Toastmasters Club. If you work the exact same agenda week after week and you're just moving the players around, but nothing else is changing, then the members are going to get sick of the program quicker, which is going to hurt your retention. And what a better time to think about how can we spice things up than Toastmasters Month. Throw some curveballs in there and get some excitement going. And there's a whole range of things. I've bucketed them into three, so I'll present the first one here, which is the easiest probably, and that's to do a special meeting. And there's a whole list on the screen. I'll just quickly touch on what each of them are. The first is a speechathon. And a speechathon it goes by a few different names, but speechathon tends to be the most common way to call it, where pretty much every member of the club, or as many as possible at least, do a speech. And that's the whole meeting, essentially. It's something that should not be used on a regular basis because, of course, you want to have your table topics and this and that. But people are doing speeches and evaluations, and that's all. That's your whole meeting. You could do that in your normal meeting space, or you could say, you know what, let's go do this at a restaurant or at the clubhouse of someone's apartment building or whatever it happens to be, just to make it even more fun. But that is really effective if you're in a club that is fortunate enough to have, a relatively large amount of members and perhaps speeches aren't that easy to come by. You could almost schedule that in every so many months as a way just to keep people moving along in the education program, because that is certainly a frustration. If you're in a member of a club where people are there's so many people, and they're great people and everything, but you've come through the door for a reason. And hopefully part of that reason is to be able to present speeches. If you are never given an opportunity to speak, though, chances are eventually you're going to get fed up and leave. So this is one of those ways you can combat that. And during Toastmasters Month can be a fun time to do that and put a spin on it somehow, that maybe guests are coming because you've got all these great speeches lined up, and with a little bit of coordination, the speeches could be on similar topics, and there's a whole plethora of things that can be done. Backwards meeting is another fun meeting format I have seen. And what that is just as it's called, a meeting, and I put a picture down at the bottom of a backwards meeting, actually, where they took a photo of just the backs of the people in the meeting. You start at the end. So the Toastmaster adjourns the meeting. You work backwards until the Toastmaster calls the meeting to order at the end of the meeting. So the fun part about that, of course, is you've got speech evaluations before speeches. And it just, obviously, once again, this isn't something you're going to do on a weekly basis, but it's something you can inject in just to get a little bit more excitement happening, building that energy up. And people, you'll find, will talk about that meeting for weeks and weeks afterwards, because it was just so much fun to try things in reverse. And you get the speech evaluator saying something like, "Oh, I love that moment in your speech where you jumped up and did this." And of course, then the speaker's trying to mimic what the evaluation was for them. So something, once again, to use a little bit of caution with, but it can be really fun. The repeat speech idea is where you have someone present a speech, they get evaluated, they present the speech again, incorporating the feedback. And what a great way you could even do that for the pathways. Level 1, project 2 has 2 different speeches. So you do your speech, you incorporate the feedback, and do it again. So you could do it over 2 meetings, where somebody does their speech, meeting number 1, the next week they come back and do it again. Or you could just do it as a singular project, because you're not supposed to get credit for 2 speeches in one meeting on one day. So it would have to be 2 separate meetings if they're going to do 2 projects, or if they really wanted to perfect that first project for whatever reason, they could do it in the same meeting. There's a club actually in District 21 called Spotlight Speakers that does that. They actually have their speech presented, and then later on, after the break, the speaker does their speech again, incorporating feedback. Different meeting roles that you don't usually have. And these could be even roles that you create. So you have everything you normally would, but you add in another layer. As an example, there is a club called Sauk Harbor Toastmasters, and they have established a role called the laugh counter. And that person does just that. They count how many times during the meeting the members in attendance laugh, and they report out at the end. Having something like that could be fun, and it doesn't have to be a regular standing meeting role. It can be every now and then you add that in to get that flavor of variety into the meeting. It could be, you don't usually have a quiz master, but sometimes you're going to put the quiz master in, or anything just to make the meeting a little more dynamic. Second to last there is living the theme. And what I mean by that is actually taking a theme for your meeting and just making everything in that meeting around that theme. A lot of clubs have weekly or bi-weekly, or however often they meet, themes, but it's rare to see a club truly live that. And on the other corner of the screen, there's a larger picture right now of the Ask Toastmasters Club in District 96, who we actually are fortunate enough to have a District 96 member on the line. Louisa Davis, their program quality director, has joined us this evening. Thank you for coming on, by the way. Appreciate it. And they are a club that I really, as a member of Toastmasters, look of a Toastmasters club look up to that club. And I think I want to be part of that club. And that's one of the reasons, because you can see in this picture, they're all wearing saris and various things because they were doing a Bollywood theme. And this was actually last February 2018, when they did this particular meeting. So I believe they went to an Indian restaurant, which is what they typically do. They go to once a month meeting, have at whatever restaurant it happens to be, they do a theme, and that makes it so desirable. Now, of course, because I live outside of Vancouver, it would not be convenient to be a member of that club, but to have that desire to be part of that club shows that they're doing something right. And your club could potentially be the same. It could be a club that everybody wants to be part of because you're doing cool things like that, where you're actually making fun. You're saying, let's dress up as the theme, or let's, it could be baseball, for example. Oh, well, we're all going to bring in a baseball and we're going to autograph it, or whatever it happens to be, to really live that theme. And finally, potlucks. Potlucks are, people love food, of course. They can be a lot of fun as well, where you've got maybe some social time, you extend your break, or you perhaps schedule your meeting to end a little early to have food, or perhaps it starts a little later than usual. I mean, the main thing there, of course, is just making sure that you open the meeting and recognize that you're going to have this scheduled potluck time, and not just leave guests wondering what happened. I thought there was a meeting at 7 o'clock and now, it's 7:30 and people are still eating, or whatever the case happens to be. So that's one thing. Is there any other ideas that people have used for meetings? I'd love to hear. Could you put those in the chat, please? If you have other dynamic meetings you've seen, let's just take about 1 minute for that. Now, everybody knows my secret as well, that's when I take my drink of water, is when I have everybody brainstorming in the chat. Wine and cheese during the break. Love it. Absolutely. And there is no rules about people drinking on the job in Toastmasters. So that is something that you could do, of course, as long as you're not a corporate club meeting over lunchtime. That could be problematic. I heard WorkSafe BC frowns upon that, but Sean, thanks for the comment there. Finding Vino, that's absolutely what they do. So you could be part of a club or start a club that is themed all around that topic. It is relatively interesting. We do have one club that is it's in the Lower Mainland, and that's what they do. They do wine sampling, and they do speeches on wines, and what a cool concept. And why I say that it's interesting is because we don't have anything like that in the wine area of British Columbia, within the Okanagan area or anything like that. So find that a little funny, but of course, Lower Mainland, they have an excellent club, and that is certainly a club that lives its theme to the maximum as well. Table topics in other languages, judged by the gestures and voice tone. I also love that idea. That is so much fun, especially if you've got a diverse group of people. Halloween themed, of course, dinner meetings, absolutely. These are all, and the benefit here too in this brainstorm is you almost get some ideas for, hey, we could have a club that does that. Like, this picture that I've displayed on the screen. This is a club that, I love them to death, and there's an incredible group of people. We don't have anything like that in District 21. So anybody listening, there you go. There's an idea. Perhaps start a club that does dinners and theme those meetings off of those dinners that you're doing, and make it a real fun event. I've got a comment here from Caroline as well. We did a speech evaluation contest with guest competitors in order for new Toastmasters to have a preview of what a competition looks like. That's interesting. Yeah, so you could do something like that. I mean, obviously you want to be clear that you're not doing a real contest when you do that in your club environment, but having the guests come up and do a table topic could be a lot of fun for the members, and also gets the guests hooked on, hey, this is kind of fun, actually, trying out this 2-minute speech or 40-second speech or whatever ends up being for the guest. So absolutely. And a mini backwards, and that's only table topics, Sean has suggested. So lots of good ideas there in the comments and submitted through question. Things for you to consider, what you could do next month for each meeting throughout February. You could do one of these ideas if you wanted to and really make it dynamic, because once again, going back to that original Toastmasters month, it is primarily, at least my interpretation of it is, it's primarily a public relations focused month, getting the word out. But there is all that other component, like I said, which is keeping that excitement going through February, and that way you're launching yourself towards year end with that much more energy. And that is exclusively taken care of in your club meeting and making sure that you've got quality meetings, which is part of it. Variety does create more quality because people are more engaged instead of, oh, well, we're going to go and do this, this, and this. And yeah, same thing, right? Those are special meetings. The second thing you can do is exploring the world. I put world, of course, in quotations because I'm referring to banner raids. A couple of pictures up on the screen again. First one is, I believe it is the White Rock Evening Edition in Division F, and the other side is that Finding Vino Club actually taking the banner of the Advanced Speakers Club in Vancouver. These are great activities to do. It's so much fun. How this works, for those of you not familiar, you take 5 members from your club and you go to another club. You take their banner, you bring it back to your club, and they need to come back to get it. And the rules of engagement, there is no official rules per se. That is generally just the accepted concept, is it's 5 people. I've heard a lot that if the club that you took the banner from brings 1 member back to your club, they get their banner back. But if they bring 5, then they can take your banner, and then it goes back and forth a little bit. As you can see, you can make that a little bit more theme as well, like you're a pirate or a thief, and you can throw a bandana on or whatever, and use that back to Virginia's point there of public relations, right? So you can post that on your Facebook, and it just becomes more of, hey, this is fun, look at what we're doing, these kind of things. It's not just go and speak and, you know, everybody's wearing a suit and tie, which some people have that perception of Toastmasters. Really fun event.
Also, Michael, it's Virginia here. Just
Yes.
harking back to public relations, you can, if you're going to have a special meeting, you know, sometimes if you know in advance, you can access calendar listings from your community paper, and there's a lot of also online publications, local, smaller publications and listings where you can promote, you know, that you're having a special evening, and that can draw special guests as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And you know, same with this to some extent, or at least you could tell your guests, hey, you know what, we're going to do this for this meeting. We're actually going to go. If you want to come as well, you can. I know a lot of people will say, well, wait a minute, these are our guests, but that's not the spirit of Toastmasters. Let's make sure that a guest, and in Virginia, I know your club is really good at this, actually, making sure that when a guest walks through the door, you're looking at that guest becoming a Toastmaster. You're not looking at that guest at becoming a Toastmaster of club XYZ. It doesn't matter which club they join. They're going to join the club that works best for them, and it's better to help them find a club that works for them than they decide your club doesn't work because of the time or whatever the case happens to be, and they just don't join Toastmasters at all. So that is the sharing spirit that we heard a little bit about that actually yesterday as well at a training event that Toastmasters is all about. So if a guest is, you know, well ingrained with kind of like they're heading towards becoming a member with your club, you could potentially say, hey, well, why don't you come along as well? I mean, they may not be comfortable with that, or the timing may not work if you go to a club that meets at a different time or whatever the situation happens to be, but something to consider. So that's banner raids. And the third topic, of course, is special events. And there's 3 buckets for kind of special events that I thought of, and I'd love to hear once again in the comments if anybody has any other ideas. The first one is high-profile guest speaker. So if you have decided that you want to do this event at, this could be good, for example, at a university or college club. Getting a high-profile guest speaker in, you could promote that all around the campus, or a corporate club could potentially do this as well. Post all over wherever you can that, hey, this person's coming in, and they don't even have to be that high profile, because guests aren't necessarily going to know that, hey, this person's, this and this position. It sounds impressive. Great. Of course you want it to be a quality speaker, but any speaker, so you could invite one of the district dignitaries, for example. It could be an area division director, district director, whoever it happens to be. Great way to bring in people through the door. Speech contests. Virginia mentioned earlier as well that speech contests in District 21, at least, will be held throughout February at the club level. Now that's, I know in District 96, they'll be moving into, area and division contests through the month of February. That's something that could be utilized as well if your district ends up in a similar boat where you're actually running area division. Well, you can make those special events as well to try and bring in people and see that, slightly higher level of caliber competition, because these people are all club winners going to area, or area winners going to division, and really utilize that as not just, come and we're going to get this contest over with, but we're going to bring in people. We're going to make a little bit of an event out of it and make these contestants feel even better about themselves. Hey, I'm getting an audience of, these people that don't even know about Toastmasters yet. And then just having information for those people about what a Toastmasters club usually does, and where their local clubs could potentially be. And finally, kind of the most simple of them all in a sense, a good old-fashioned open house. And you can make that anything you want. In fact, that can be something that I know some clubs, they just have every month, a certain meeting of the month is called their open house. And they don't really do anything significantly different, but the mentality for guests when you say it's an open house is different. And I noticed that a lot even with my home club. Every time we put open house anywhere, the word open house is dropped, or the phrase open house is dropped. People get excited and they start coming. You get 3 times the amount of guests you normally would, and it's like, wow, how did that happen? 2 words, open house. So utilize those templates on the Toastmasters.org website in the resources, search resources area, or create your own using the branding manual to make sure, of course, you're using branding correctly, and get open house out there. And whether that is a regular thing or whether that's just something you do, a couple times a year, or however you think it works best for your particular club, that is an excellent way to bring guests through the door. And if you pair it up with some of those other things, then it could be even more fun. Any other special events that anybody's run that they think is really interesting? Okay, there's some comments from Sean as well here. Debates, joint meetings with another club, and special training. Yes, that is something, especially for advanced clubs. We sometimes, if you're a member of an advanced club, it can be really challenging to get new members because you only have one source to get your members, and that's other clubs. And of course, unfortunately, there's perception amongst some clubs that, hey, if you're recruiting an advanced member, you're taking a member away from my club. Not necessarily the case, as dual membership is very common amongst that group of people that are joining advanced clubs, but nevertheless a concern. And inviting people in, though, for special events at your club, like evaluation training or judges, like Sean's mentioned, great way to just get people in the door and kind of meet your members, and everybody's more comfortable that way because they're coming for an event, and then they'll maybe see how they feel about that club. Okay, so Caroline Ivy has done some research on the banner stealing as well. 5 to steal a banner, 5 to get it back, and 10 to get it back and steal theirs as well. So I think there's a couple of different ways it can be done, depending on the club, because I've also seen the 1 to get it back, and if you take 5, you get theirs as well. I've seen all kinds of different things. The main thing is definitely need 5 to get their banner to start with, and then maybe you can set the ground rules between each other just to make sure nobody misunderstands, because some people may not be familiar with banner raids either, which could become awkward if there's a lack of comfort. Just a couple of other ideas here that I'll use through the chat, and then we'll carry on. Humorous speaking workshop, host a keynote speaker at your club. So for example, district international speech contest winner. And that's especially good because, of course, right after the contest in particular, they may need some more practice for potentially moving on to the semifinals, depending how they do in the videotaped quarterfinals. Watch World Championship video and do round robin evaluations on the speech. That's really good to do for just for fun and kind of practicing evaluations. You could also do that as part of almost like a judge training where you watch, you score it, and then you kind of talk about the different categories high level and how that went. All right, so we will move on though. Great ideas, and feel free to keep sharing them in the chat. There's no reason you can't. The last kind of bucket here is membership drive. And this is something that I know some people are not familiar with. If you sponsor new members, Toastmasters International actually recognizes you at, I believe it's 5, 10, 15, maybe 20 new members, and give you a pin, and I can't remember what other awards they give you, but they actually provide you a tangible item. And a lot of members don't necessarily know that how you become a member sponsor is just on the membership application, you fill out that, you know, this person introduced me to the club. So ideally, that area should never really be blank. And members should be encouraged then to bring in friends and neighbors and guests, anybody they can find off the street, well, within reason, to sign up for the club and recognize them. Not only, you know, is Toastmasters International is already recognizing them publicly, so use that in the club as well as a little bit like, hey, wait a second, you know, John Doe brought in 5 new members. Great, you know, congratulations, and really make a celebration of it, because then people are going to see that and think, oh, I should up my game as well and bring in people that perhaps I hadn't thought of before. So I just want to make everybody aware of that, because I know that's an area that not everybody's comfortable with. How do I become a member sponsor? It's just that application form. And the person who enters the membership online will actually, there's a drop down, I believe, which you just click on which member introduced, and it does all the rest behind the scenes. This is another big thing to do, an actual membership drive. And you can combine everything we talked about before in your membership drive. Because what happens, at least what I've seen in some clubs that have done this really effectively, is they publicly say, the vice president membership usually leads this and says, we're going to do a membership drive. If you can bring in a guest, we're going to give you 2 points, for example. Your guest comes back, we're going to give you 5 points. If that guest becomes a member, 10 points, or however they want to score it. And then at the end of the month, in this case, or it could be in a different period of time if your club decides, they recognize and present some sort of award to the person with the most points. So it makes it a little bit of a challenge. It can be a little bit fun. It can be talked about each week to really reinforce it. There could be open houses incorporated within that to make it even easier to bring in the guests and friends and so forth. And I think the club, one of my home clubs that I started out with, what they did was, I think it was a movie gift certificate or something like that they gave. It was just a fun little token of, hey, here you go for being the winner. But it stirred up some competition. So something to think about. And the result of this can be the Talk Up Toastmasters. Talk Up Toastmasters runs February 1st through March 31st. So it starts in Toastmasters month and then carries on. So if there's any hangover at the end of February of guests that hadn't quite signed up, you still get advantage of it. 5 new members gives you this lovely ribbon. It's bigger than this for your banner. And also 10% off your next club order with Toastmasters International. So that's a nice savings for the club. You've got a ribbon. You'll see that recognition on Club Central as well when you go in. And you get a nice letter. I believe it's signed by the international president. So really nice kind of way, once again, to challenge yourself and your fellow club members to go beyond and reach that next level. So 5 members, it's certainly doable. It is a challenge for sure, but it is very obtainable, particularly if you've got a group of committed members. And I firmly believe, and I hope you all feel the same way, even if you have 8 members on February 1st, you can get 5 new members by the end of February, as long as those 8 people are able to put a good plan together, going back to that tree and the shade, how somebody had to think ahead of time. If you think now, how can I get 5 members through February and March? I'm sure if everybody puts the effort in, you will get 5 new members and be up to 13. So just something to ponder on, because that's certainly an area where I'd love to see people focus a little bit more on that. At least, Talk Up Toastmasters, it's a good excuse to go out and find new members. So with that, we're heading towards the end of our session. We've got just 2 minutes or so left, but I did want to make sure if anybody had any questions or ideas that they wanted to throw out on the table, that we made sure to hear those quickly before the end. So did anybody have any other ideas? I did see, Louisa, you suggested the idea of a joint social meeting with other clubs in the area. And I was fortunate enough as well to be invited to, this was a number of years ago now, but a division Christmas event. And I believe it was actually 2 divisions that were neighboring divisions that actually put it on. And it was at a pub. It was great. They had these little door prizes, and there was snacks that were brought in, and it was a real nice, just a social gathering, purely social. And once again, that's where we keep people in Toastmasters, is by having that fellowship. So it's that variety we talked about, but also the fellowship. That's how we keep long-term members. If we don't have those, then people are going to come and go at an expedited rate rather than, the normal rate that we expect, because there's always going to be people leaving. People come for, I love the phrase, a reason, a season, or a lifetime, because it's so true. I mean, some people are coming because they need to do a speech at a wedding in a couple months, and no matter what we do, how great of a program we run, we may not be able to keep them. Other people come for, perhaps they just want to get better at public speaking. That's a common thing people say when they come through the door. You may have them for a season, but if you really work with them and you have that fellowship and variety, you may be able to convert that person to a lifetime member. I mean, you look at our district, we've got some amazing members that have been around since, since 18 years old. A good example would be Mark Hope, who's a past international director, accredited speaker. She was in a Gavel Club before she joined Toastmasters at 18, and here she is all those years later, a very well accomplished person, and we've got many more. So with that, it is 8 o'clock, and I wish we had a lot longer to chat, because this is a great topic. I hope you found some value in this session, and please reach out to me if you ever have any questions or thoughts. My contact is on the screen there, email, and we can always set up a phone call or anything if you ever want to have a discussion about these concepts or any other concepts. And I'm there to support you if you need anything. And we will see you next week for the next Seminar Sunday. Thanks very much. And thank you especially to our PR manager, Virginia, for supporting in this call as well.